All right, let's give this a try at explaining again. So, if you have ever wanted to take a particular element out of a game and to not have it be blocked by a streamer, good example would be, say, for instance, Darkest Dungeon is the one we're using right now. It's the one I just made today, and the one that my friends will find most use out of. So I figured I would explain this one, get your wheels turning, stuff like that. But the goal is to show you the amount of control that OBS gives you over your actual game and your presentation. So if you've ever played a game like this and you realize that its interface is not exactly made for Twitch and for streaming, I mean, it's pretty frustrating. I really, really value being in a particular position for a lot of reasons having to do with Twitch's browse page and visibility and click-through. So a game like this is kind of a big deal when there's vital information that hides behind me as the streamer. Right now, I can't tell. I can't explain to my viewers the information that's behind me. I have to tell them. I have to look at it, look at the game. I have to tell them. And it would be a much better thing if I could present it and have the freedom of doing things like this, where I could pull it out and I could show, hey, here's our chance to hit, here's how much damage we're going to do, here's what it's going to do, and here's all this information, right? But I also want the ability to combine that with other effects that take place, and I'll show you the sort of freedom you have. Say, for example, we have full screen zoom, and typically this would be a really hard thing to figure out how to be able to combine the two without it messing everything up. But as I'll show you, it is possible. It just takes a little bit of know-how and a little bit of creative thinking. So this takes 4 layers. This is a 4-layer project here, and we're running in studio mode, so hopefully that helps you see stuff. I will explain. I've shown you the end result. I will explain what we have in place as we go, but right here, let's go ahead and go to our original, our first scene, our first layer. Our first layer is literally just the game. I added the microphone so that if I happen to switch to a scene or something, if I wasn't in studio mode, somebody could still hear me, but ignore that. It actually doesn't matter, and I should be able to just get rid of it, and you shouldn't have a problem here. See, just the game. That's all that's in here. This is important. This doesn't seem like it would be important, but it's important for consistency. Whenever I pull this game into anywhere, I'm not going to be pulling a game source. I'm going to be pulling the actual scene called game source, the scene that I've named game source. I want to pull from that so that everything is coming from the same location. So I have one layer, and this is where things get a little trickier. Now, I have another layer. Again, it is just game source, but it's not the source, it's the scene. I want to be consistent, and I want to do that. And you're going to see what I've done in here and where I've added filters and stuff like that. There's no filter over here. I actually have a filter on the entire scene, and you will see why in the next layer. It'll make sense. But if you notice, layer 1, layer 2. Layer 2, it has, let me pull it up, general graphics. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and pull this up. It is a PNG. It's transparent. All the white is transparent. It's feathered at the edges. And I'll show you in the end why that is. I'll remind you. But this is the filter I have applied as an image mask. That's it. That's all it is. It is measured exactly like I took a 720. I took a 1280 by 720 canvas. I took an actual screenshot of the game and cut it down to what I wanted this particular panel to be. And so if I go over here and I turn off this filter, you will see the entire thing shows up. That's important because you want the entire thing. You want the entire frame there. And here's why. You're about to see why. When we go to our third layer is where we combine these 2 layers, the game source and the panel. So again, I'm using game source. I'm pulling from here. I'm not pulling from a source. I'm pulling from a scene. So this is a scene, this is a scene, and this is my camera. And this is why it's important that we do it this way, why we separate and why we use full canvases. This is important that it remains a whole and that it can slide back into place evenly because of the way that the particular filter that we're going to be using is. There's a plugin called Motion. Now, there's 2 plugins called Motion. I will try to find the link to the proper one. OBS's website for motion is this one that looks like it transitions and folds things in, and it's the same exact name as far as I can tell as this other one called Motion. That's the older one. This is the older Motion. I will try to include the link in the description on the video. I'm going to include the link on the description of the video. The reason it's important is because the way that the motion filter works is the motion filter does not want you to add a filter to sources. It gets mad. Sometimes it'll give you no info. Sometimes it won't even let you select the thing you want. Let's just try. I'm going to click this panel. And if you look, let's go ahead and add motion. We're going to add motion in. And if you notice, it literally doesn't have it as an option. It just has game source as an option. Not even the thing I want, because I don't want game source here. So let me go ahead and delete that. So this is our third layer. Let's go. Let's stay on track here. We have layer 1. We have layer 2. This is the combined layer. So technically, it's only like one layer up, but it's your third scene. This is where you combine game source and your panel that you made, which you can't see because it matches perfectly with the background, but it's right there. Now, here's what we're going to do. We have that behind our camera. This canvas here is the most important part because it's going to allow us to do proper layering effects. It's going to make it so that when I zoom in on this particular item on the panel, it's going to make it so the panel stays behind me. That's why this layer is important. So let's lock it all in, and then let's add our motion filter. Now, I'm clicking on the scene, not the source. I'm clicking on the scene because that's what motion likes. Now, this is just renamed, but this is motion, this top one. I'm going to delete this other one below, okay? I don't want it to be confusing. This right here is literally motion. I just renamed it. And I chose my panel because that's the item we want to be zooming in on. Now, the trouble with motion with this is you actually have to do basic math, which, I mean, is just not fun. It's just not a fun thing to do. So with that in mind, real quick, I'll just tell you my settings. I'm running a 1280 by 720 canvas. So here are my settings. I chose the source, which is the panel. Again, I chose the panel here, but I put the layer on the scene. Having it in the scene allowed me to choose the source. I'm going to pause the video for a half second, even though it's not professional, because my child is crying, and I'm a father. I'll be right back. That's great. I never actually thought I would use that feature. So as I was saying, filter. We added the filter on the scene. It's over here now. I'm just going to tell you my settings. You can mess with them yourself. Let me just slide them over so you can see them. And so here's the deal. It's applied to the panel. If you remember, that's not my game source. That's my panel. I have it set to round trip, position and size. Not position, not size. Position and size. Here's the important part. Custom starting settings. You want it to remember its location. This thing will forget where it's at. You'll send it into a zoom, and then you'll unsend it, and it'll forget where it started. So you have to do that. And this is why it's very important that, again, we're going to pause. My child's still crying. Let's try it a third time. I probably honestly won't even edit this out. It's mostly for my friends, or if anybody makes it this far, they're interested in this sort of thing, and that's cool. So, I'm not looking to hit it big with a viral help video. I just want to share what we know. So, this filter, again, it's motion. Position and size. You have to give it a starting position. You just have to. If you don't give it a starting position, it'll forget where it's from. Your starting position is your full scene, and here's why. Remember, I said this bad boy right here is locked in. It's your full canvas size. That's why. That's why it's important you use a full canvas size. That's why it's important you don't chop the thing down and do weird stuff. That's why we used that filter with the transparencies. Because here we can say starting position 0, 0, width 1280, height 720. Now, obviously, it's going to change if you run a different canvas size, but you can figure that out. Now, here's where your guesswork comes in. X and Y is guesswork, but you don't do that first when you're setting this up. You can copy my settings if you want. You get the same exact results. My width is 2240 by 1260. I forget what the multiple is on that, but the point is that is properly divisible by 1280 by 720. It's like, I forget if I did like 1.5 or 1.75 or 1.6 or something, but I multiplied 1280 by a number, and I multiplied 720 by the same number to get these, because it'll actually squish and distort the final result, because you are resizing a canvas, an entire canvas. We are making a canvas that was 1280 by 720, 2240 by 1260, and that's the same proportions. Once you get that size right, you can slide the destination around. In general, you're going to have to use negative numbers. Why? I don't know. I honestly don't. Most of this stuff is through experimentation. Somebody who's probably smarter would probably know. But you will put in numbers and you'll see it slide all over the place. And here's the way you test it, is you come down and you hit forward. And then you hit back. And these acceleration things, it'll change the speed it goes. It'll change how long it is. Let's say we want it to take 5 seconds to come out. Awesome. Cool. That's a little long for presenting information to people, right? Because this is the stuff we're after. We really just want it to be faster. So in general, let me just have it go back. Don't mess with these numbers while it's in transit. You'll screw everything up. It's not the most solid filter. It's very impressive, but so yeah, this allows me, if my mouse is resting on this stuff, to do this and to talk about information. And presentation's all up to me. If I end up having this out and take my mouse off of it, okay, it's going to look ugly. So it's up to me as the streamer to present it right and to come over to these units and talk about it, and then remember to close it before I change. So that's that. That's our game capture. This is all it is. Four different sources: microphone, camera, the panel, and the game source. Now, here is why the last scene is important, the last layer. Technically, it's 3 deep, even though we've done 4, right? I simplified this. My original was 5. A little much. We can do it at 4. So, here's why the last one's important. Now, where previously, if I would have zoomed in on this, it would have pulled in front of my body, because it has to zoom something. It has to zoom it to the front. Now what I'm doing is I have a filter separate on game capture with zoom. My last layer. This is what my stream sees. These are also motion. I did the same thing with these, and I set them up so that on my stream deck I have zoom. Now here's the important thing about this is if I would have tried to add the other layer here, the panel would have to be in front of me. There's no way to zoom it behind this. There's literally no way to zoom it behind that I can figure out, except what we did by layering, because that allows you to do things. Now that I have these here and all my other crazy stuff that goes on this scene, now I'm able to take an effect that was in this layer when it's on a hotkey, which I'll show you hotkeying in a second for where they're at. When it's on a hotkey, if I hit a hotkey, it's adding a filter to the previous layer. And what that allows me to do is to take that game capture, which, I'm sorry, I didn't mention this. It's all the way back here. Like I added this source is the game capture scene. I probably should have said that first. So for this final layer, you add the end result of here to here as your base canvas for it, and then everything else on top. But what it allows me to do, and ignore all the other stuff, alerts, numbers, stuff like that, whatever. What this allows you to do is to do the previous effects that affect everything, and it properly layers to where if I'm zoomed in on the right stuff and I do that, that's happening in the previous layer. This one happens in this layer. And even then, this is great because I can really emphasize, wow, I have this % chance to crit this. Wow, we're going to go for it. Awesome. Let's click that button. And then we come over and awesome, cool, we attack. Hey, cool. Did it work? Well, let's see, yada, yada, yada. And it all becomes about the presentation, right? So I think that makes sense. I hope it makes sense. If you have questions, you can message me, Discord, Twitter, YouTube. I don't know if you can send messages on YouTube. I don't know this stuff. You probably can. Write a comment. I'll reach out to you. I enjoy this stuff. And part of being successful on Twitch, an element that helps is creative use of OBS. So I hope this helps. Hit me up if it doesn't. I'll answer any questions. I will include a link to the motion plugin below. And if you need the particular feathered PNG, I guess I'll put a link to my Discord, and you can message me there, and I can send the file to you there. I'd be happy to. So awesome, guys. Thank you for hanging out through a scuffed little video that I hope is helpful to my friends and anybody else who ends up coming across it. All right. Bye.